Yo, hey guys, what is up? It's JJ Tech here, back again for another tech video. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the Samsung Galaxy S20, S20 Plus, S20 Ultra, and Galaxy Z Flip. So with no further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so at first I wasn't going to make this video just because I understand I'm a little bit late on this. These were already revealed about 3-4 days ago. So I guess you could say I'm kind of late on this. But I still want to do this video just to see, if these phones are actually even good. To see if it's an actual upgrade over the Galaxy S10s, which came out last year. To see if this Galaxy S20 is really worth upgrading your Galaxy S10 or maybe even your Note 10. So let's start off with the boring stuff, which is the specs, which you guys probably already know of. But I'm going to say it anyways just to kind of recap your mind on what these things have. Now, for the S20, the smaller one, we are going to have a 6.2 inch 3200 by 1440 pixels per inch screen, and of course it's going to be an AMOLED screen. And in terms of the cameras here, depending on which model you go for, it will change. For the S20 and for the S20 Plus, it will be the same camera layout, but when you go to the S20 Ultra, I'll tell you guys right now, but that's kind of a different camera setup. Now for the cameras on the S20 and S20 Plus, it is going to be a 12 megapixel for the main camera. For the secondary camera, which is a telephoto camera, is going to be 64 megapixels. And for the third camera, which is an ultra wide, is going to be 12 megapixels. So you're going to be getting a 64 megapixel telephoto lens. And of course, that's going to help for zoom in shots. And I will get on that a little bit later because this Samsung phone has something up its sleeve, with the zoom capabilities, which I'll explain in a minute. But yeah, basically that's what it has, ultra wide. And for the video recording capabilities, this is all across the all S20 series, which means the S20 Ultra, even the S20s, the regular ones, are capable of recording 8K video, of course at 24 frames per second. But just the fact that these can even record at 8K is kind of insane. Phone technology in terms of the cameras is just getting even better every single year. So yeah, if you want to record 8K on your Samsung Galaxy S20, keep in mind that you can do that. But of course, it does come at a price. And of course, if you want to record at 8K, you kind of have to get the higher gigabyte models because, as you know, 8K is kind of not the standard right now. So it'll take up a lot of space. So now let's get to a little bit of the funner parts, which is the colors. Now for the S20 and S20 Plus, they are actually going to be a bit different, as well as for the S20 Ultra. But I'm going to start off with the smaller S20. For the smaller S20, you're going to be getting Cosmic Gray, Cloud Blue, and Cloud Pink. Of course, I'll show all these on screen here so you guys can kind of get an idea on how these look. Now for the S20 Plus, we're going to be getting Cosmic Black, Cosmic Gray, and Cloud Blue. So basically, if you want to get that pinkish color, you will have to get the smaller S20. But nowadays, I wouldn't even consider the smaller S20 to be small. Now if you got a bunch of money in your pocket and you're willing to go for the S20 Ultra, you're only going to be getting two colors, and sadly they're pretty plain Jane. What I mean by that is, look, you get Cosmic Black and just Cosmic Gray. So pretty basic for the S20 Ultra. I actually would have thought that since the S20 Ultra is the most expensive one, that it would have the most color options, but it's kind of the complete opposite here in this case. Now for the screen sizes, I mentioned that the S20, even though it's the smallest phone, still has a massive 6.2 inch display, which is about the same size as my iPhone XR here. So yeah, it's already a massive phone. Now for the S20 Plus, we'll bump that up to a 6.7 inch display. And get this, for the S20 Ultra, it's going to be a 6.9 inch display, which is one of the biggest displays I've seen on a smartphone yet. So that's pretty insane. So if you want to get the biggest one, you gotta get that S20 Ultra. Like I said, how I said I was gonna talk about the zoom features? Well, Samsung is calling their zoom thing, or whatever their zoom capabilities, space zoom. So for the S20, you're gonna be getting 30 times space zoom capability. For the S20 Plus, it's gonna be 30 times space zoom capability. And get this, the S20 Ultra will be able to go up to 100 times zoom capability. Let me just zoom in for you guys so you can kind of sink that in for a minute. As you can see here, 100 times zoom. That's insane. Now, I've seen some sample videos of this, And so far, when you do zoom in to 100 times X, it kind of does seem really blurry, which is kind of understandable. I know I haven't talked about the camera on the S20 Ultra, but keep in mind I'm going to get there because the figures on this thing are insane. Now, in terms of the battery capacity, for the S20 Plus, you will be getting a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. For the S20 Plus, you're going to be getting a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. And the Galaxy S20 Ultra will have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is insane, but at the same time, it kind of seems reasonable enough just because the S20 Ultra is just a powerhouse, and the 5,000 milliamp hours kind of seems like it would be the minimum for that phone. Now on to the camera for the Galaxy S20 Ultra. Now this is where the big numbers start to come in for this phone. Now obviously this phone starts at around $1,500, but I'll get to the price later on. Like I said, 6.9-inch display. Like I said, the resolution is basically the same as even the smaller S20, but get this, 108 megapixel camera. Now keep in mind, that is not from the main shooter. I believe that is from the telephoto lens. And in terms of the other cameras, it is going to have a 12 as well as a 64 megapixel camera. So just like the other S20 and S20 Plus, but that a 108 megapixel camera is what's going to be capable of zooming in that 100 times. Now this is the kicker. The standard for the S20 Ultra, for the Galaxy S20 Ultra, is going to be 12 gigabytes of RAM. Keep in mind, that's for the first option. And get this, you can get a 16 gigabyte of RAM S20 Ultra. Now for the S20 and S20 Plus, you can only get 12 gigabytes of RAM, but I say only like if it's a small amount. 12 gigabytes of RAM is going to be way more than what the average consumer needs, and 16 is just kind of insane. Now of course these are all going to have, reverse wireless charging on all three of these models, so you won't be sacrificing the reverse wireless charging on any of these phones. Now obviously the big boy in this comparison here is obviously the S20 Ultra 5G. That's kind of the one that everybody's talking about just because this thing is just insanely expensive and the specs are out of this world. Now I won't be getting into the other specs of this phone just because they're pretty basic, just as before. Glass, Gorilla Glass 6 on the back, Gorilla Glass 6 on the front and back. So you're going to be getting the latest and greatest Gorilla Glass. Other than that, it's just the pretty basic stuff. Of course, you're going to get an always-on display, and you are going to get HDR10 Plus on all of the S20 models, so you won't be sacrificing that. And I did forget to mention one of the main key features, that 120 Hz display. Now you will be getting 120 Hz displays on all of these S20s. Now keep in mind though, in order to actually activate the 120 Hz, you do have to go down to 1080p, which honestly isn't much of a sacrifice. I honestly rather have the 120 Hz than that full resolution, just because since these Samsung screens are just so good, you really won't notice a difference. But overall, these phones are insane, like I said. Now these aren't going to be released until March 6th, I believe. And yeah, they are going to be released later on in the year. Now, I didn't forget the last phone, which is the Galaxy Z Flip. Now, I gotta say guys, the Galaxy Z Flip was definitely a surprise that I didn't think Samsung was gonna announce. I kind of thought it was going to be the Galaxy Fold 2, but it looks like they made it kind of like a copycat, I guess you could say, of the Motorola Razr, if you guys have heard of that phone. Now, this thing does have obviously flagship specs as well, and this thing's also going to be pretty expensive as well. And keep in mind, by the time I'm actually recording this video, this phone has already been released, and I've heard that they're already been sold out, which is insane that these things have sold out, because compared to last year's Galaxy Fold, things didn't even sell. So it's kind of insane that these things have already been sold out. Now, with all that aside, let's talk about the specs. Now, in terms of the camera, it's not as insane as even the S20s. It's only going to have two cameras, and they're both going to be 12 megapixel cameras, so nothing insane. Like I said, kind of dual cameras is the standard. I'm kind of surprised Samsung didn't go for a quad or a triple setup on this thing, but I mean, duals is still perfect. Obviously, one's going to be a wide and one's going to be an ultra wide. So at least you're getting the ultra wide instead of that telephoto lens, which honestly I think is really not needed. Now this thing is also going to have HDR10 Plus. Now here's one thing that I kind of thought was a little bit pathetic. This thing is going to be having the Snapdragon 855 from last year, which is not a problem because that thing is still insanely quick of a processor. But I mean, this thing starts at $1,300. you would think that they would at least put that newest Snapdragon 865 processor in it, but they didn't. Now, in case you guys didn't know, obviously the S20 and the S20 Ultras have the Snapdragon 865, which is the newest processor from Qualcomm. And it's kind of odd that they've decided to put the Snapdragon 855. Like I said, not a bad processor. It's not even a year old yet, actually. But, you know, it's kind of insane that this phone is pretty expensive and they got last year's chip. Now, in terms of the RAM, you're going to be getting 8 gigabytes of RAM, so none of that insane 12 or 16 gigabytes of RAM, which, like I said, 8 is actually just the right amount nowadays. It's kind of the standard. Obviously, this is what Samsung's calling a glass display. I don't really believe that, just because, I mean, honestly, there's pretty much no glass that can really fold like that. And in case you didn't know, this does look like the Motorola Razr, and from all the stuff that I've heard, this thing is definitely far better. And the last thing, this does have a 3300 milliamp hour battery, which honestly is a pretty good amount, because this does have a 6.7 inch display, but it is a little bit of a kind of like a taller phone instead of that wide phone, kind of like the S20 Ultra. So yeah, overall, I think this is going to be one of the most popular phones, just because it's unique, and it's actually cheaper than the Samsung Galaxy Ultra, which is kind of insane. So yeah, pretty much these phones are insane. Like I said, by the time this video is out, the Z Flip has already been released, and there are already a bunch of videos on that phone. But like I said, the Samsung Galaxy S20s will be released about March 6th, I believe. So you're still not a good month away from that. But you can already start to reserve them, not pre-order, but reserve on Samsung's website and on certain carriers. So that's pretty good. Now, let me talk about the price. Now, I kind of don't want to make this too long of a video. I kind of want to cut it down a little bit. So let me just get the main prices out of the way. So like I said, the Galaxy Z Flip will be starting at $1,300, which is kind of, if you think about it, compared to last year's Galaxy Fold, which started at around $1,500, it's a little bit of a better deal. Now, the Galaxy S20 will start at $1,000. The S20 Plus will go for $1,200, which is insane. And get this, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra is going to be $1,400. By far, I believe this is one of the most expensive phones on the market, and I think this actually beats Apple. And usually Apple takes kind of the crown on this in terms of how expensive their phones are. But looks like Samsung kind of took that crown away from Apple, and this makes one of the most expensive flagships of 2020. So yeah, those are the prices, and of course you can trade in your phone to get a little bit of a cheaper price. And of course, I did forget to mention, these all will have 5G capabilities. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up today's video. Like I said, kind of wanted to talk about these phones, and like I said, as much as I would like to pick these up, you know, I kind of can't. They're pretty expensive right now. If I do end up getting one, which like I said, I'm not making any promises, I'm not getting this phone at all, but I'm just saying later on in the year, if this thing does, you know, get cheaper, the S20 Ultra, which eventually they do start to get cheaper, who knows, I might even get one. Stay tuned, maybe for Christmas, I don't know. But yeah, guys, like I said, and I have tried to get a review unit of the S20 and the Z Flip, but unfortunately, you know, like I said, with the Z Flip being sold out and with the S20 not even being released yet, fortunately I was not able to get one. So that kind of sucks, but I'll definitely still keep trying so I can try to get these phones in for a review. So yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps up today's video. Don't forget to subscribe down below and follow my Instagram at JJTech123. But yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. Peace out.